This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Have you made up your mind on the plan for an Alberta pension plan? Like, if you live in Alberta, if you pay taxes in Alberta, if you work in Alberta, and you've been paying even the tiniest little bit of attention to what the UCP government is putting in front of Albertans right now, have you formed your opinion? Depending what orbit you're in, depending on what your friend circle looks like, you may have heard from people that are championing the idea, or you may have heard from people that are concerned or even adamantly against the idea. We've had guests on the show that have been talking about the reasons why they think it's a bad idea. Today, I expect we're going to hear some of the reasons why the government intends to move forward, at least to the point of polling Albertans and maybe moving toward a referendum. Alberta's Minister of Finance, Nate Horner, will join us in just 30 seconds, taking your questions and mine as we ask you today, you down with APP? Want to let you know that this episode is I was really proud of that, John. I worked really hard on that one. Thanks very much. This episode is happening with the support of our friends at Business Career College. Wanted to let you know that right now, if you're looking for a rewarding and high-paying career without a university degree, you can get started as an insurance professional right now with Business Career College. You know, in Canada, insurance agents are starting around $56,000 a year. They can soon be earning right around $90,000 annually. And all you need to do is take an approved course and pass your licensing exam. BCC offers industry-leading approved courses in life insurance, property and casualty insurance, and their expert instructors are passionate about helping you launch your new career. Right now, a great deal for Real Talkers. You can save 15% off any Business Career College insurance course with the code REALTALK. All one word, 15% off any insurance course at businesscareercollege.com. The Honorable Nate Horner is Alberta's Minister of Finance. He joins us live on this Thursday. Welcome to the show. Thanks for making time for us.
Thank you, Ryan. Pleasure to be with you.
You bet. We'll talk about some of the pros and cons of an Alberta pension plan. How convinced are you that this is the right idea?
Well, I'm totally convinced that it warrants Alberta's consideration. I think that, if you saw my mandate letter from the Premier, it basically said to release a report and have a conversation with Albertans. That's what I'm committed to. I think the report shows a lot of promise, obviously, for Alberta. And it shows the potential impact of our overall economy that would be just a real game changer for the province, would have the capacity to help, workers, businesses, and potentially those already receiving benefits. So I think it definitely warrants consideration.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know that probably, people are responding to this survey right now, and people can find it online. We'll link to it in the show notes here on the podcast on YouTube. They can have their say. I'm sure you haven't seen the curated results yet, but what are people telling you with emails to your constituency office, or what are people telling you on the street, if anything, about this?
Well, I'd say that the emails that have been fairly targeted, a lot of chain emails from the usual suspects that are mostly negative, I would say. But in the conversations I'm having, there's a lot of people that, they're interested. They want more information. They do have questions, but they kind of want to, unpeel the onion a little further, get some more information. We're trying to get them to reach out to the engagement panel once they're fully operational on October 16th. And I hope the panel can kind of collect all of these concerns and questions and, tell us all the information that Albertans need to have firmed up in front of them.
Is this the type of situation where if the results are clear and if Albertans en masse are saying no to this, that this is something that the government will happily just walk away from? I mean, do you get the sense that it's a done deal either way with the government having made up its mind?
No, the cake is definitely not baked here, Ryan. If it is completely clear that Albertans aren't interested in this being pursued further, it won't be. That's our commitment, is just to have the conversation. And I think anyone that's even glanced at the report would want us to do that. I'd hate to, in my short time in this role, I would hate to have not released the report and at least had this conversation, no matter how this goes.
We put the opportunity out to our audience members to ask you a question, put questions in front of us. Tina wrote in. She said, I'd like to know why the questionnaire doesn't ask Albertans a simple question. Do you want an Alberta pension plan? She says, instead, all the questions seem calculated to present a done deal, that the APP has already been settled. What would you say to Tina?
I would just say when we released the report, we did release the campaign with the report, and our hope was that we could use the survey to learn more about what you would be interested in if we were to pursue this. We never intended for the survey to be the referendum itself. Click yes or no. We really felt that this warranted more engagement, and you were going to have to dig in a little more before you just gave us your first yes or no answer. So that was always the intent.
I'm sure you saw the comments from Michael Leduc. This was in a recent Don Braid column. He's a spokesperson for CPP Investments, essentially managing the Canada pension plan. And he was asked about the formula that this LifeWorks report comes up with. Essentially, I think Albertans are familiar with the numbers now, over $330 billion expected. The report expects that would be Alberta's share. It's about 53% of the total assets of the CPC. He says that's a hard no. He says it's an invented formula. I mean, if people don't have confidence that these are the proper or accurate numbers we're talking about, isn't the entire process flawed or at least compromised?
Well, I'd say it's a complicated situation, and I don't want to speak ill of anyone. Michelle at CPPIB, he's been great. I've met with him multiple times. They certainly didn't tell us that they felt the formula was invented when I met with them, and we presented them with an embargoed copy of the report. Tried to do our best to be very professional about this. But I would say, obviously, they are trying to put their thumb on the scale. There's no doubt they've been advertising in Alberta about the CPP since the report was commissioned. So all that being said, the report is not invented. The formula is not invented. It's in the CPP Act. There is different interpretations out there. When we wanted to commission this report, we put out an RFP. Morneau Chappelle won the original bid. They're very renowned in actuarial and pension analysis services across Canada. They did become LifeWorks while they were doing their building the report. But yeah, this isn't our calculation. We reached out for the best in the business, and this is what they came back with. And we've had it vetted by multiple legal opinions that believe that they followed the correct methodology and believe their interpretations are sound.
So Minister, so you're confident that 53%, you're confident that about $330 billion is the accurate number, that would be what Alberta would be withdrawing from the fund?
Well, I think even the report shows that there's a range. They can just go off the best publicly available data that they have. So I think the report showed from 260 to 360, but within that range, certainly.
We talk about the pros. I mean, it looks like, the government, or at least the messaging around this campaign is lower premiums for Albertans and higher payout. And who wouldn't love that? Can we for a second talk about the cons? I mean, are there things on your radar? Are there impacts, potentially Alberta's relationship with the rest of Canada, potentially what it might do to the CPP? I mean, if you look at this fairly with a pros and cons list, what might be one con?
Oh, I'd say, there's risks with anything for sure. This would be a big, complicated change. So it would take time and it would take effort. I would say, obviously, it would be impactful to CPP, post an APP asset withdrawal of the size that the report outlines. It would mean that CPP would change, not nearly as dramatically as it would change for an APP, but it would mean that the minimum contribution rate for CPP would go up by about $175 or $170 for every employee and employer. And the other side of that coin is the up to $1,425 difference in Alberta, the other direction. So obviously, I reached out the night before the report was released. I spoke to every provincial finance minister that we could get a hold of. I was able to speak to most of them. They definitely, they have concerns. They would love Alberta to stay in CPP. They obviously see the benefit for their people. So that definitely is real, that there will be conversations had across the country. But right now I'm focused on the conversation with Alberta first.
Was there any provincial finance minister that said, right on, go get them, do it?
Well, Quebec maybe, but I wouldn't go that far. But they did say that they're proud of their pension plan when I spoke to Quebec. I mentioned that your contribution rate's slightly higher than CPP, and they said, well, they kind of have a dual mandate too. They're doing they're investing and managing the assets, but they're also building infrastructure and doing economic development within Quebec, and they thought that had value for their people. So
yeah, and you know what? That's my last question for you, Minister. I appreciate your time. This one's from Charlene. She says, please ask Minister Horner the following. She says, because my risk tolerance is very low, she says, I have all my RSPs in GICs because I need the stability of knowing my principal's safe. She says, the CPP gives me a guaranteed monthly amount with an annual cost of living increase. What reason would I have to move my pension from that kind of stability to one that will hold risk that may be beyond my tolerance profile? We heard from Trevor Tombe a short while ago, the economist, about Quebec's pension plan and how they've utilized those funds, and you just touched on it. There are some concerns or some speculation that an APP might be used to more heavily invest in industry in Alberta. It seems like an obvious conclusion. We'd have to wait and see. For some people, they see that as Alberta dumping money into an industry that has a phase-out timeline. What would you tell people that are concerned that might be how their nest egg or their pension funds might be used?
Well, I've heard those things mused about, but honestly, I think that's really far from any direction anyone would want to head. We're going to bring legislation forward this fall that'll basically just clearly outline that the only way we'll proceed with a pension is after a referendum. If it can keep benefits the same or increase them, if it can keep contribution rates the same or decrease them, and that any assets used would only be used for a pension plan. So we want to make sure that everyone knows that we're not, we don't believe in going down the model that Quebec has. We want everyone to know clearly that this will be for the operation of a pension plan. I'd say when it comes to risk around the investment itself, that's something I think that the engagement panel will hear a lot about. And there's absolutely nothing that would prevent Alberta from continuing to ask CPPIB to be the investment manager. And if we are to go down this path in the early days, that may make a lot of sense. But regardless, whoever would be investing this on behalf of Albertans, it'll have to have a complete global investment profile. There's no way that you can manage risks and have certainty in pension plans. No one around the world does this without a complete global profile. So no one has to worry about it just being invested here.
Don't you think CPP would tell us to pound sand if we pulled out and then asked them to manage the fund?
Oh, I definitely do not think so. I think it would keep not only their economies of scale, but it would make it a lot easier to, instead of having to physically unwind some of these assets, they can keep the asset pool together and basically just split the balance sheets. I think they would like that very much.
Minister, we really appreciate your time, and thanks for doing the interview.
Sure. No, appreciate it. Thank you, Ryan.
You got it. That's Alberta's Minister of Finance, the Honorable Nate Horner. So the argument for, although it kind of struck me as pretty measured, wasn't coming in and banging the drum, saying we're at this point, we're hearing from Albertans, but he does tell us, as you just heard, that they do have confidence in those numbers, that 53%. Some people are cynical about that. Mm-hmm. You hear from some of the experts that it's probably closer to 20% of the Canada Pension Plan. I referenced that conversation we had with Dr. Trevor Tombe, the economist out of the University of Calgary, widely respected. That was on our October 3rd episode. You can find that on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Just look for the episode titled Brilliant or Boneheaded. How do you feel about Danielle Smith's Alberta pension plan? And you can let us know what you think to talk at ryanjesperson.com. Again, that was the October 3rd episode, and then today with the Honorable Nate Horner.
Brilliant or boneheaded? That's the two words my mother describes me as usually.
Yeah.
Either one or the other.
You want to err on the side of brilliant more than boneheaded.
But
and we didn't really give, and the conversation is probably more nuanced than that. If we're asking you, is it brilliant or is it boneheaded? You go, well, maybe it's somewhere in the middle. There are a lot of people that will find the argument that the minister just made, the argument that the premier is making, the argument that the report essentially makes. They'll find that compelling. If you live here in Alberta, in our home province, would you like to pay less and get more out of your pension? Well, obviously, yes, I would. But then people also have concerns. I'll be curious to see at the end of the day, like he basically said, if Albertans tell us they want nothing to do with this, we'll drop it like a hot potato.
But why isn't the question on the website then? Like the first question should be, do you think this is a good idea or not? Or would you be interested in this or not? Yes or no, right?
Yeah, it kind of goes into it and asks, people's questions like, if Alberta switches to an APP, how should the savings be used? We could click through this if we wanted to.
Take a look.
This might be kind of interesting. Let me say, do we want to go with to increase pension benefits for seniors? That's a tough one to say no to. To decrease payroll contribution rates for Alberta workers. I don't know if that's the number one concern right now. Is it to decrease contributions? I don't think so. How about to decrease payroll contributions and increase benefits? Well, hey, yeah, like do you want dinner and dessert? Yes. So I'm going to go with that one. We'll see. We'll click ahead. We'll see what that gives us. Okay. Well, as you indicated in favor of increasing, what would you like to take? What form would you like that to take? A higher monthly benefit check? A one-time bonus when you retire? I don't know, or other. I'll say I don't know. But again, like the point that Tina was making in her question here, there isn't right out of the gates, at the outset of the survey online, it doesn't ask brilliant or boneheaded.
No.
Like we do. I wonder if we could get a government contract to maybe do some polling.
Right.
I'm not sure the credibility would be there. Because we always present our unofficial, unscientific Twitter polls, and we present them as such. But you'll remember, we had about 2,000 people respond to our unofficial, unscientific Twitter poll about an Alberta pension plan a couple of weeks ago. And, again, here's where it gets unscientific. It's on Twitter, number one. Number two, we're asking just Albertans to participate, but who even knows, right? So you got to take this stuff with a grain of salt. But we asked Albertans, do you like the idea? Do you not like the idea? 82% of people. And we asked, are you initially against it or initially in favor of it or undecided? We didn't get too crazy on it, but 82% said they were initially against the idea. So if 4 out of 5 people, now that's probably not the provincial average. I bet you the provincial average is I don't know if it's 50-50, but there's probably a significant number of the population, a significant chunk that would be down with this idea. And there's probably a significant chunk that's not. I bet it also depends on where you are in your career.
100%. Like when you say, would you like to pay less and get more out of your pension? I, as someone who isn't thinking about my pension and retirement yet, think, yeah, that's a great idea. But somebody who is like going to retire in a couple years is probably like, please don't mess with anything. Everything is, I see my numbers, I know what I'm going to get, and now you're going to flip everything on its head, right?
Yeah. A lot of comments on the live chat, and we appreciate your engagement there as well. Muddy Otters Pottery says an unclear questionnaire should be the first red flag that it's a sketchy proposition. I don't know if it's an unclear questionnaire. It's just the questionnaire is not containing a pretty basic question that a lot of people want to have there, and that is, do you want this or not? But the minister also just said, he said the questionnaire is not intended to be the referendum. The questionnaire is intended to get a sense of what people might want an APP to look like. But I see where you're coming from. I mean, the question, I do think that the survey may have more credibility if question number 1 is, are you for or against? Just to send a pretty clear message to the government. Because if I'm not down with an idea, and then you ask me a bunch of questions about what the thing should look like that I don't want, If Johnny and
I
his
don't
beautiful,
want apple pie. Well, if you had apple
Yeah.
pie, would you have whipped cream on it? Or
Johnny
would you have it
and his
heated up?
bride go out for dinner, and they offer you the prime rib.
Yeah.
And you tell us you're plant-based, and then we say, would you like it medium rare
Yeah.
or medium or, yeah. Would you like it with onions and mushrooms? Or no, like we don't eat meat.
Yeah. The other thing that scares me a bit is a couple of questions you asked him. He said, well, it's very complicated. It's very complicated. We keep hearing this word. Well, it's
The formula, yeah.
It's going to be very complicated, and switching over is very complicated. That doesn't put a whole lot of trust.
But of course it would be, because you have to, Alberta's looking to get the most it can. I mean, we're talking about the hypothetical circumstance that this moves forward. And my call, if I have to make a prediction here, my call is that this does not even make it to a referendum. And if it does make it to a referendum, my guess is that it would not pass. I guess what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, I don't think that an Alberta pension plan is going to happen. But then again,
Crazier things have
Crazier
happened.
things have happened.
And I agree. I don't think it's going to happen either. But you never know in this crazy province of ours what is
there's going to be
happen.
There's a lot of other priorities right now. If we had more time with the minister, I would have asked him, and we'll ask the premier next time that we have an opportunity to sit down with Danielle Smith about their Tell the Feds campaign. You've probably seen this at tellthefeds.ca. The Alberta government is advertising across the country, asking, including right in downtown Toronto with billboards and other sort of promotional tools about Ottawa's proposed electricity regulations. The Alberta government is saying these electricity regulations are going to make electricity unreliable and unaffordable. They say that the things that Canadians count on won't work when they're needed. At tellthefeds.ca, you can find out more about that. You click on Speak Up, and it gives you an opportunity to contact your MP. Now, this is on behalf of, essentially, it doesn't have the government of Alberta splashed all over it. You'd have to kind of either know about it or do a little bit of digging to understand that this is the government of Alberta's ad campaign. But you wonder if these two conflict with one another. On one hand, the province of Alberta is saying, we want out of CPP. We're going to go at it ourselves. We believe we can get a better deal. We believe that, in more casual vernacular, we're getting screwed by the CPP formula, so we're going to go it alone. And then at the same time, asking Canadians to come together for electricity prices, to talk to Ottawa, to talk to the feds. That the province of Alberta, the Alberta government, is really pushing back on the federal government, in particular Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault's plan to get Alberta's electricity grid to net zero over the next 10 years or so. And we've talked to the federal minister about this. We've talked to Minister Rebecca Schultz about this, and we've talked to others. The province of Alberta's take, or the Alberta government's take on this, is that this is a non-starter. It's impossible. They either need more time or different conditions, because it just ain't going to happen. So Alberta's kind of planting its flag on that argument. So there's these two concurrent campaigns that are running right now, which are pretty interesting. And you wonder if the one might compromise the other. You can let us know what you think on that. It's talk@ryanjesperson.com, our inbox, where you can find us. I see a lot of people asking questions in the chat, like, is this a separatist government? There's not been talk about, legitimate, serious talk about Alberta separating from the premier's office, at least not in the last while, not since they won the election anyway. They certainly didn't campaign on that. But you look at moves like establishing an independent, a provincial pension plan, talk about an Alberta police force, and people start to wonder, like, are these steps where we're inching towards something like that?
I think it's a bit, not a full-on dog whistle, but it's a bit. It's a bit when you push agenda like this, just a little, those people who are kind of, Ottawa messes with Alberta, we could do better on our own. Of course they like this stuff, right?
Yeah.
I will say that, that ad campaign on that website, electricity prices are already out of control. So I don't know what they...
Well, and they're the worst in Alberta.
Yeah.
Right?
So
we saw those numbers, 128% year over year, the rise in cost of electricity in Alberta. Which is like miles ahead of any other province.
Well, it says electricity is going to be unaffordable. Well, newsflash, it already is for a lot of people. So.
Yeah. Dwayne says, I've formed my opinion already. The government is not doing the right thing here. People, a lot of people are talking about gambling. Like Justin says, the Alberta pension plan seems like a horrible idea. Why was the report not released during the campaign? We asked the premier about that when she was here. We asked what her plan was. She said we're going to review the report, put it in front of caucus, put it in front of Albertans. And that is what they're doing right now. Sylvia says this is a waste of money, chasing unicorns. Meantime, Cactus Sheriff thinks this is happening. He says this is happening regardless. He says the government doesn't have a track record of listening to Albertans' opinions. I don't know about that, man. I think that if a government knows that something would be incredibly unpopular and knows that Albertans want nothing to do with it, or knows that it would be a distraction, or knows that it would be more costly than beneficial, I don't think that they would move forward with it just for a political survival standpoint. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. I guess that's part of the reason why I don't think it's going anywhere. But we'll see. We'll see. Tracy says it's the worst idea yet. Nick says they'll listen exactly how much they've listened on coal. And that's just not limited to this government, is it? Yeah. Dwayne says if it's such a good idea, why is there a need to advertise it to make it look feasible? Shouldn't it go on its own merit? Governments advertise everything all the time. Sylvia wonders why they're expanding resources on this track when there are so many more important things to do, rather than trying to fix something that's not broken. The proponents for an Alberta pension plan would argue that it is broken, right? This is like the refrain, the refrain that people have heard from Alberta, or that Albertans have heard for many years, and that's Alberta is getting screwed. People think Alberta gets screwed on equalization. People think Alberta gets screwed on the Canada pension plan. And so that's probably why they're moving forward, is because they do believe that it's broken. Justin says, I'm not convinced here. He says, let's talk about how this government's lying about Albertans paying more in than they've withdrawn. He says it's an individual thing, but more Albertans retire elsewhere. I wonder why. Justin's not wrong. If you and I live and work in Alberta through our career years and pay into, we pay Alberta provincial tax, we pay our federal taxes, we pay into CPP, and then we go move in our retirement years to Kelowna or to Halifax or to wherever we go.
Still there.
You're going to be drawing from the Canada pension plan from outside Alberta when you paid into it in Alberta. And there have been good points made that are maybe obvious, but I think that they deserve to be reiterated, and that is that Alberta doesn't pay into the CPP. Albertans pay into the CPP. So workers pay into the CPP, full stop. Might be obvious, but to some people it may not be. So, whether you're working in Vancouver or Edmonton, Leduc or Hamilton, I think I'm doing really well coming up with regional. I'm really trying to represent all the provinces and all the jurisdictions in my hypotheticals here. Waterloo. It's so fun to say.
St. John.
Then you're paying in proportionate to what you're earning and to your maximum take, and ultimately that's what you'll be drawing on as well. Again, you can send us a thought to talk at ryanjesperson.com. We do have Trash Talk coming up tomorrow. And that's an opportunity for you to blow off a little steam, say what needs to be said, and, basically sort of use our platform, use our blowtorch to send a message to your fellow Albertans and to the rest of, Canadians that'll be listening to this. We also, and I'm just going to dangle this, John. I know that we haven't discussed whether or not we're going to talk about this publicly quite yet, but I am going to drop a little hint right now. We're not losing our tradition of providing our platform for people to blow a gasket, blow off steam, rant and rave.
Oh, you mean Trash Talk?
But this coming Friday will be the last ever Trash Talk. Yeah.
We're
keeping the tradition, but you won't hear it called Trash Talk after
don't
tomorrow.
Say another word.
I'm not saying another word.
Because now people are intrigued. What's happening?
I'm not saying you'll have to tune in to find out 2 Fridays from now, but you'll still have an opportunity to use our megaphone to say what you need to say. This episode is happening with the support of our friends at California Closets, who want to remind you that they have custom closet and storage solutions for your entire home. Make the most of your space with their custom organizational systems. And I know that you may be thinking about your bedroom. You may be thinking about your workspace. Maybe you want to put a Murphy bed in there so you have a home office, but then guests come over and you can convert that space. All your living areas, the living room like us, an entertainment center. But what about your garage? California Closets is doing a ton of work in garages, the workhorse of the home. I mean, go to their website and take a look at some of this stuff. The photo gallery, it's absolutely beautiful. If my garage looked like this, I might just I probably just hang out in there more than I do right now.
You already
I already
out
do
your
hang out in my
garage
garage a lot, but this stuff like
You might move in.
Man, their garages, the garage done by California Closets is different than anybody else. You can also check out their client stories, the testimonials. Closets.ca. Our friends at Kubi Renewable Energy are going to be at the Edmonton Home Show coming up. That starts on October 13th on Friday. And they want to talk to you. If you have any questions about solar, maybe you're looking at getting it installed in your home, your business, your farm, check out their website here, kubienergy.ca. They've got professionals with decades of experience in renewable energy, and they can talk to you about the entire installation process from start to finish, right? They got to do the design. They'll do that through the winter months, most likely. And then in spring, they'll get your panels up. They want you to feel confident when you're making that switch. You know that almost 80% of renewable energy installation in Canada in 2022 came from Alberta? 80%? Unbelievable stuff. Right now, renewables are making up about 14% of Alberta's electricity profile. They're expecting that to increase to a third, to about 30% by 2030. You can find out more by checking out the blog link. There's lots of great resources there at kubienergy.ca. And a shout out to the team that built our beautiful studio right here in the historic Mercer warehouse. That's Complete Care Restoration. A lot of people know Complete Care Restoration for the work that they've done helping people get back on their feet from fire damage, flood damage. I mean, all the nightmare stuff. You know, you open up a wall, you think it's going to be a small project, and then you discover mold or asbestos. But the team at Complete Care also does construction and renovation projects, including in office buildings. A lot of property owners are reimagining their spaces due to COVID and back to work stuff. And, well, you know, everything that's changed over the past few years. Complete Care Restoration can help you from the very beginning stages understand what a renovation or transformation project might look like, and they strive to exceed your expectations at every opportunity. You can learn more by checking out CompleteCareRestoration.ca. Pretty noteworthy story out of Quebec. We wanted to make sure that we mentioned this. Two former Quebec junior hockey players pleaded guilty yesterday. We're talking now on Thursday if you're hearing the show. This was on Wednesday. Guilty pleas to sexually assaulting a minor a couple of years ago in June 2021 as their team celebrated a championship win. Both 21 years of age, Massimo Siciliano and Nicolas Daigle, pleading guilty to sexual assault. Daigle also pleading guilty to 2 charges of filming and exhibiting a video of the act. These two hockey players are playing for Victoriaville, the Victoriaville Tigers, in the QMJHL at the time of the assault. The victim, whose identity is protected by a publication ban, 17 years of age at the time, an employee at a Quebec City area hotel where the team was staying during that playoff run. The team had won the league championship, and back on June 6th of 21, they're celebrating at their hotel, and basically the survivor in this situation, the victim of this assault, had befriended Nicolas Daigle while the team was living at the hotel because they had been there for about a month. And she had been invited to join the party. This is an agreed statement of fact, by the way. So this is the prosecution and the defense both signed off on this characterization of the event. She had declined an invitation from team members to join the party. But later in the night, Mr. Daigle messaged her and convinced her to return to the hotel to come see him in his room. At the time, when she entered the room, she discovered that Mr. Siciliano was in there as well. She had been told that he was not. She had been told that Mr. Daigle was alone. And when she was there, telling investigators later she felt trapped, sexually assaulted by the two men for about 40 minutes. She was filmed without her knowledge. The video was released. The pair were charged in October of 2021. Their trial scheduled to begin this week. The guilty pleas coming in yesterday. Now, they'll return to court later this month on October 20th for sentencing. The prosecution says they will likely be seeking jail time. They could be sentenced up to 10 years here for this assault. Of course, this is all part of a bigger picture of hockey. I mean, hockey, generally speaking, hockey culture, you might find it under the microscope. under allegations of sexual assault and hazing. Hockey Canada, the sports governing body here in our country, has been hit with heavy criticism. As you know, the entire board basically revamped and moving in an entirely new direction, as I think not just the governing body, but the sport itself is trying to either maintain or regain trust with players and families and with the members of the general public. Keep in mind as well, investigators in Halifax, the Halifax Regional Police continue to investigate a sexual assault allegation involving members of Team Canada's contingent at the 2003 World Junior Championship in that city. You've got the 2018 team under fire as well. As much as I hate to say it, it's a gut punch to the sport. It's a huge black eye for the sport, and we also want to remember that these are real people whose lives have been changed forever in horrific ways. This is a sport right now that's got a lot of work to do, I think, to regain the trust of people, but also recognizing that the young people, the boys and girls that are playing this sport at 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 years old, need to start learning early on about what it looks like. We talk even, and we've spent a lot of time, it gets folded more into the conversation around parents' rights, about teaching kids in sex ed about consent.
Yeah, and I was just going to say this goes back to our roundtable last Friday and the students who were on here talking about how, and I know things have changed. I know young hockey players, young boys are more inclusive, are smarter, are better, more respectful men than of the old era, because I just know I've met students of today. They're thoughtful. They're genuinely concerned about the future and other people's feelings and stuff like that. But we still have this stuff happening. So I think one of the most important things, and if you go back to our Friday roundtable, it was amazing that all three students agreed that we need consent teaching in school at all levels, from the time, I guess you would start around grade 6 or whatever. I'm not a teacher, but through high school and even in university, like it seems like such a simple thing, but we were never. And go back to the show here on Friday. Yeah,
we're showing this to people. This is our October 6th episode, by the way, and
it seems like such a simple thing, but
these were three university students. It was Rochelle Preston from the University of Lethbridge, Prabjit Grewal from Mount Royal University in Calgary, and Chris Beasley from the University of Alberta. They were talking to us about that polling. And that was, I had to read that story
stuff.
Twice.
Yeah, I didn't think it was
13,000. If you missed that, I would encourage you to check out that episode. Again, that was our October 6th episode. 13,000 post-secondary students polled in Alberta. And they said, more than 50% of them said that they had experienced some form of sexual or gender-based violence.
It's crazy.
50%.
But even like small things, just asking someone like, hey, have you had too much to drink? Would you rather just take a ride home instead of hanging out anymore? Are you tired? Like, it's like simple things you might ask someone like a family member or something, but you might not ask someone who's out at a party with loud music and stuff like that. And then the other thing that was really telling was, when we were talking about some of the ways they were trying to improve on-campus security, like lighting up hallways better and doing stuff like that. And then the students came back and said, basically not in so many words, but, if lighting up hallways is how we're trying to fix this, like people should be allowed to walk down dimly lit hallways. People should be allowed to go talk to hockey boys in their hotel room and not expect that they're going to be assaulted and filmed without their knowledge, right?
But it's, you get back to that culture, and the culture is that if you've been told for your entire life that you're the cat's ass, if you've basically had sex handed to you on a silver platter, I mean, real talk, like, the phrase puck bunnies and the whole idea. And people are saying here in the live chat as well, they're saying it's not just hockey. M. Aitken in the live chat said this is just organized sport. I don't think it's just limited to hockey, but hockey's had a few big high-profile black eyes recently, and so people are focusing on hockey. But you get to the point where if you, since the age of 9, 10, 11 have been told that you're probably going to, get a scholarship or you're going to play major junior, or you might play for Team Canada one day, you could be drafted to the NHL. You're getting, people might find this tacky, but the fact is, you hit out of your league, your girlfriends are always hotter than you are because you're a hockey player. You're always surrounded by people that want to be around you. Girls are waiting for you outside the locker room. They want to get on your team bus. You get the idea. you get to the point where and I'm not at all making an excuse for anything. I'm just saying if you don't have a counterbalance of proper teaching, proper education, and understanding of how to treat people, and understanding of right and wrong, and understanding of consent, the basics, then you see situations like this where a lot of people, you look at these hockey players and they're kind of like almost a little bit surprised that this is a problem, a little bit surprised that this is an issue.
And I understand that all of this stuff, there's a spectrum. Like, not every sexual assault is just this happened, this person. Sometimes people are drunk. Sometimes people are young. Sometimes people are in situations they shouldn't be in. But, like, when you're telling someone to come to a room and you're planning something and video, like, holy crap. And hockey already taken all these bruises, especially this week, with last year, all the professional players not wanting to involve themselves in Pride, and now Pride tape being banned. Like, it's been bad for Hockey Canada, CEO, whole board is out. Like, it's not looking good for hockey in general the last long stretch here of a year and a half, 2 years.
Nick says consent talk can start early. He says, I'm teaching my 3-year-olds that consent is important with all kinds of play, and developing a foundation of consent outside of sex. It leads to easier conversations later. Nick, I love that comment. He's so right. And I think that sometimes it gets spun as well. Like, everything gets supercharged and politicized, and everything is polarizing, and you're either here or here. There's no gray area. There's no nuance. And so people hear, oh, they're teaching consent in elementary school, and then people, spin that as they're teaching kids how to say yes to sex when they're 6 years old. No, you're not. You're teaching kids to understand that your body is yours. You're teaching kids to understand that this is wrong. If somebody tells you this, or if somebody tries to do this to you, or if somebody puts you in this situation, if somebody tells you to not talk to your parents, if somebody asks you to keep a secret, like all of these little things, it's all part of the bigger picture of helping kids understand that. So when they grow up, they have those tools. We might want to believe that everybody's going to respect their fellow humans.
They're not, though. And that's like we know how harassment happens in the workplace and stuff like that. It starts by someone, touching your back and then putting their hand on your knee when you're at your desk. And so all these little things. So even that stuff nowadays, like, some people don't like to shake hands or hug, and some people are huggers and handshakers. And like, you're right. It has to start with even like, hey, would you mind if I shook your hand? Would you mind if I gave you a hug? I'm happy to see you, etc. And if you teach kids that early, I think by the time they're 16, 17, and not everyone's going to be perfect, and everyone's going to make mistakes, and some kids are just assholes.
Yeah.
But
I've moved away from the
But
hug.
if you do everything you
have
can.
Have you moved away from hugs?
I have moved away. Well, since COVID, I kind of have.
Yeah.
Right? But
Well,
I used to be the hug guy.
There are many contributing factors, but I think you used
Not
to.
anymore.
People used to just, not everybody, but a lot of people, myself included, used to just kind of like hug. And then now looking back on it, it's kind of like, nah, it's people's personal space.
Yeah.
And,
a lot of people don't like it.
And I get a little shot of, not adrenaline, but I get a little shot of like something good, a little shot of like we did something right when I go to shake someone's hand and they say, we're going to hug. And I go, nice.
Cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Because, I don't know. It's just a little thing. These are just little steps. And I don't think that you want everybody walking around paranoid and scared all the time.
No.
But also, we've got to swing back. We've realized that society got to a point where we weren't hearing people that had reservations about things. We weren't hearing from people that had trauma. We weren't hearing from people that weren't comfortable.
Well, that's another thing I was going to say is a lot of people have things that, like, they don't want to be touched for reasons that you may not know. And they may not want to disclose it either. They it may not just be like, oh, I'm feeling sick or I have the sniffles, or it may be something that is none of your business. So I just avoid it now. I'll reach out my hand for a handshake. If they don't want to, it's usually a pound. A lot of pounding going on these days.
A lot of fist bumps, yeah, definitely. I like this from Sharon, who says, like, consent can be taught anywhere in any context. She says, I'm teaching consent with my grandson when it comes to the dog. Like, he wants to love up on her and pet her and all the time, and like she's not always into it. And I'm just teaching him, like, no means no, right? Other people are saying stronger consequences are needed. People are talking about asking, like here, Cactus says, I'm always for sure a hugger, but always asking is a must. MA says, you got to teach your toddlers that even relatives can be predators. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, you talk to anybody. By the way, we heard from people that work in the sexual assault space, recovery support workers, about an email that we read yesterday on the show about false accusations from an audience member named Kyle. Wanted to let you know we will follow up on that. That was something that lit a fire under a few people for understandable reasons. And those people, advocates and people that work in the space will tell you, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but it's something like, I hate to cite a statistic on the show without having it in front of me, but I think it's like 90% of sexual assaults, the victim is known to the perpetrator. The perpetrator is known to the victim. In the vast majority of cases, the person knows their attacker. And so MA's onto something there, saying you got to teach your kids about relatives. I do think, like, obviously people find their own way to do that and to do it in the proper way. But of course, I mean, I don't think that we want our kids walking around naive.
No.
Just because it's easier for them to live in this bubble where they're never having to, encounter anything that challenges them or that potentially makes things uncomfortable for a parent momentarily. But at the end of the day, as a parent, wouldn't you want to feel like you did what you had to do to make sure that your child was properly equipped and prepared, not just to protect themselves, not just to keep them safe, but also to ensure that they don't harm others?
100%.
I think that that's so important.
I like how you said that, because there is often this thought or feeling that, like, when you say rape, people often think of like a dark, dingy alley or like a parking garage where like a guy jumps on a woman and drags her into a staircase or something like that. But when, like, we know now today that sexual assault, like you said, the majority of the time, it happens in ways that are subtle, and it happens with people and probably trust.
Yeah. Tara Lynn says, I'm a hugger, but I ask for... You're bringing up hugging, man, has like lit the live chat on. I'm serious. It's good.
Well, it's because I used to hug everyone.
Yeah, she says, I'm a hugger, but I ask first, and there are people I don't want to hug, so I appreciate being asked as well. I think that that's a great comment. Yeah, I mean, and people are also pointing out, by the way, this is a follow-up on that story. We did talk about this on our Friday roundtable because we did have the one guest, the student rep out of the University of Lethbridge. At that time, this news was just breaking, and there's an update to the story of the Lethbridge high school football players in the alleged sexual assault of a teammate. They've now been charged. Lethbridge police have laid charges for teenagers in relation to an alleged sexual assault in the locker room of that Lethbridge high school. This was on October 3rd that police say a teenage male was forcibly confined and sexually assaulted in the locker room after school hours on October 3rd. The 4 teens now facing charges, sexual assault with a weapon, assault with a weapon, and forcible confinement. They'll appear in court later this month on October 25th. Their names are not being released under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. These are horrific.
Like, what's going on?
They're horrific situations. I mean, number one, let's be clear, for the survivor, for the victim of this assault, number one, their life and the implications of this and the consequences of this, the impact on their life is number one. What needs to be our focus, and that's what the courts will certainly focus on, assuming that, these players, these football players will have their day in court. Whether or not they plead guilty, we'll see. Whether or not they stand trial, and we'll see what sentencing looks like. There will be a victim impact statement, I'm sure, and we hope that the court will consider that, though I don't know how many of you have confidence in the justice system, especially considering what Professor Ben Perrin talked to us about on yesterday's show. But also, these 4 young players, I mean, you do the crime, you do the time. I'm not saying that they shouldn't or won't, but I'm just saying, you're 17 years old, you're 16 or 17, and now you're facing, these, aside from homicide, aside from murder, sexual assault charges are about as serious as it gets. Like, your life is ruined.
For sure.
And that's a choice that you made. That's something that you did. We're all dumb. I mean, I've shared on the show before, I was a young offender. Now, what I did was more stupid. It was property damage. And when I was 16 years old, and I did my time. I paid my penance. I did my community service. I paid the fine. I paid restitution, as they called it. So part of me realizes that young people can make horrific mistakes. It does feel like apples and oranges, talking about property damage versus sexual assault. I think those are 2 different circumstances. But still, you've got, 16, 17-year-olds now that are realizing for the first time maybe ever the consequences of their actions and the implications that will have literally on the rest of their lives.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I don't want to make excuses for them, but if that was me and I was that young, I might look to my parents and say, like, hey, you never taught me anything about this stuff. All you did was say, go to practice, get good grades. You never told me anything about the, and yeah, they're almost men. Let's be honest. They're 17 years old. So it's not an excuse, but like, it's another reason you need to teach people consent. This is a good comment. Kathy says, my daughter is teaching her 2-year-old that if a relative says, come on over here and give me a kiss, that the child does not have to. And she is encouraging him to say no if he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
I like that as well.
Tracy watched that roundtable last Friday, said it was incredible, said the youth were outstanding. You could tell how passionate they are, and they demonstrated their leadership skills in spades.
So I was
Tracy, I agree.
I was like, I'm not saying when we were young we were stupid or anything, but they're very emotionally intelligent and just very thoughtful these days. All the kids are.
I sent them a note after, like we had a group email as we were planning for the roundtable, everything. I sent them a note later and I said, I barely know the three of you, but I'm proud of you. I said you were great on that roundtable. I like this comment from Rob as well. Rob says alcohol use and alcohol abuse should also be part of the conversation when we're talking about sexual assault. Rob, you're absolutely 100% correct. Mm-hmm. We want to get to some of your responses. We did talk about the NHL banning Pride tape yesterday. We tweeted about it. We had a bunch of different responses, and so I want to get to those in just a second. But first, we'll let you know that these conversations are happening with the support of sponsors like the family-owned team at Grand Dog Essentials Quality Raw Food. They've got a couple of things going on through the month of October that we want to tell you about. You know that we feed our dogs, Moses and Monroe, quality raw food from Grand Dog Essentials, and we have for years because we've seen the benefits. Well, through the month of October, you can knock $16 off each box of their chicken, veggie, dog food blend using the discount code OCTOBER2023. $16 off. October 2023 is the discount code. This is whole chicken sourced from Alberta farmers, human-grade facilities, but they keep the meat and the bone and the organs and everything all ground up in there, which means that your pups are getting all the nutrition they need. Plus, they add the veggies in there for fiber and for gut and digestive health. It's a full meal deal for your pups. And you can also find the new 4-leaf Rover bundle. I love this. You go to the Shop Now link, and you can find 4-leaf Rover bundles at granddog.ca. All kinds of curated bundles, no matter what your pup is dealing with, whether it's allergies or maybe they need some joint support like Moses, our boxer. Maybe they need healthier skin or immunity support. Maybe it's just a senior dog dealing with the realities of life. You can find those all on sale right now, on special, delivered to your door in Calgary, Edmonton, and Central Alberta. Don't forget the promo code REALTALK takes 10% off your first order at granddog.ca. At Friesen Brothers, Alberta grown and Alberta owned for coming up on 70 years, if you can believe it. They want to let you know about their Oktoberfest dinner that's coming up. It's October 21st and 22nd. Check out the website here. I'm showing you can click right on it at friesen.com. That's FRESON. The October Feast goes October 21st and 22nd from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Friesen Brothers locations. You can find out which locations they're going to be. I'll just tell you. Edmonton, Stony Plain, Hinton Hill, Peace River, Fort Saskatchewan, and Drumheller. Shout out to Drumheller. Drumheller is an underrated tourist destination in Alberta.
The only thing I'm thinking is that you can get beer. You can get beer in Friesen Bros. Like, you can literally go up to the taps, get a beer, and then you get, I'm guessing, the sausage and everything. It's going to be a party.
Man, Alberta beef rouladen, chicken fricassee, German potato dumplings, sauerkraut, German rye sourdough buns, the full salad bar, everything. It's just $25 per person at all of their Fresh Market stores. So that's not all 16 locations, but all the Fresh Market stores, October 21st, 22nd from 4 to 8 p.m. Details on their website. If you're thinking about revamping your outdoor space, maybe next spring, you'd love to have shovels in the ground. So next summer, maybe it's your big anniversary coming up. Maybe it'll be a retirement party or a 40th birthday. Who knows? If your backyard is going to host guests, Eden Landscaping wants to get you ready for that. You can check them out online at landscapeedmonton.ca. If you check out their portfolio, you'll be able to see some of the work that they've done for clients across the Edmonton region, the Metro Edmonton region, all different kinds of installations, from stunning stonework, natural beauty, maybe even ultra-modern displays. And, of course, you can get the ball rolling by contacting them on their website. Again, that's landscapeedmonton.ca. You've got ideas. They can tell you how to bring that outdoor space to life. And then as a full-service contractor, They'll make it happen. That's Eden Landscaping at landscapeedmonton.ca.
When are we going to see your backyard?
Yeah, it's coming up, buddy. They just finished
gosh,
it.
I can't wait to spend the... Oh, wait. Snow's coming.
Yeah, but no, as you're going to see, because our reveal is going to be a fall reveal, right? So, like, some of the trees are losing their leaves and things like that, but we've designed it in a way, and you'll see. So it's got like the fire pit. It's got a stone patio.
Oh, you got the
so
whole...
for us, it doesn't matter if it's fall or winter
Yeah.
or spring or summer. We're going to be able to entertain back there and enjoy that backyard for all 4 seasons, which is what we told them about.
Amazing.
Because, even like one little thing, like here's one little thing for us is like, we have dogs. Anybody with dogs knows you let a dog out into a backyard in spring, it's a total mess. And then they come in your house, it's a total mess. We were like, can we find a way to eliminate that from our list of concerns? And the design they came up with, I was like, you guys know what you're doing. I like it, so we're pretty happy about it.
Well, I'm not going to lie. You're going to see me just slowly driving by your house,
We have
Fridays
big,
at around
big high fences
10:30.
and cameras, John.
Oh, just
Yeah.
see what you guys are doing.
I'll see you on the camera and ask what you're doing, and you can let me know. I was just checking out the Eden Landscaping.
Oh, there's game on.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Were you surprised that nobody was rocking Pride tape and warm-ups last night?
So
in
I
National
watched
Hockey League games kicking
specifically
off?
for it.
I was wondering
like,
if anybody was going to do it.
I know it's not going to happen, but I was like, man, if someone just did it, it would be amazing. And the way people were talking, a lot of the prominent athletes, a lot of the captains, a lot of the players saying, hey, like basically everyone said this is a poor decision. Connor McDavid basically saying he wants it reversed, and he hopes in the future it will be.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing. And then a horrible... What they Oilers lost like 8-1.
Oh my God,
this is how I felt last night watching the game.
The Oilers. You're showing everybody the Ben Affleck outside smoking the cigarette. That's like one of the most famous photos of all time. The Oilers just thumped by the Vancouver Canucks last night. Yeah, that was tough. But and I didn't necessarily expect any NHL player to rock Pride tape. And if you're wondering what we're talking about, just to bring you up to speed, our yesterday's episode, we get into it. You can check it out if you like. That'll be the October 11th episode of Real Talk. But Gary Bettman in the National Hockey League banning the use of Pride tape in warm-ups. So they're going an extra step. It used to be that NHL teams would wear Pride sweaters in warm-ups or military support sweaters or breast cancer sweaters. You know what I'm talking about, everybody. But the NHL has said not only will those sweaters not happen anymore because a few homophobes basically got upset about it, James Reimer, the Stahl brothers, Ivan Provorov, and a few others, who I think I'm just going to keep saying their names as long as we keep talking about this. The NHL didn't want those few guys to get uncomfortable, and so instead they took a league with more than 700 players and outlawed the whole practice. But now they're saying that no Pride tape either. I mean, the NHL is taking actually a big step back. I don't know if you saw Brian Burke yesterday.
Great post.
Had a post about this, basically calling this a huge step back for the National Hockey League. This is one of the more respected voices in the league. Brian Burke is serious. I mean, he's certainly, and his son Brendan, who's now deceased. Brian has committed a lot of his life's work in memory of his son Brendan, who is a team manager, a hockey team manager, who also happened to be gay. So we tweeted about this yesterday. I said so much for hockey is for everyone. I say the NHL bans Pride tape because a handful of big, tough hockey players felt the tiniest bit uncomfortable in warm-ups. I said good on Connor McDavid and every other player speaking out in support of inclusivity. Take the fine and rock the tape. And so I wondered yesterday, would anybody rock Pride tape in their first game of the season? Mm-hmm. I'm not surprised they didn't, number one, because I think any athlete would tell you, I think any person would tell you that that would serve to be an enormous distraction on game one
100%
of their team's schedule. So that doesn't seem to me to be like the proper play.
Yeah, like yesterday, someone had also said, well, what about goalie masks? Maybe somebody could put a Pride flag on the side of their goalie mask. But like... hockey players are so in their head. If you do something to draw attention away, and like you were saying, the goalies used to hate, or they would hate if you wore Pride tape during a game. Any little thing would have been. But hey, in a month or so, a few weeks in.
The Oilers are still going to have a Pride night, and I would imagine that some of the
could be a
players
night.
will still wear Pride tape on their, still wrap their stick blades with Pride tape for that warm up. We'll see. We had some responses here. I thought I'd read them. Always want you to feel like if you're responding to our content, to our posts, that there's a chance you'll hear your name on the show. Meg says, basically says, hockey fans saying this is shameful. The league is openly discriminating against gay people. And then she says, well, also hockey fans, I couldn't possibly give up watching my favorite team play or supporting the league. Mm-hmm. I get where Meg's coming from, but I'll also say I'm not going to boycott the National Hockey League. I'm not going to stop watching hockey, the sport I love, because of a disappointing decision. But I do believe that we need to push the league, push our favorite sport or a sport we love. Is the case with anything, whether maybe you're a music fan and there's a band you love. Maybe you're a fan of cuisine and there's a restaurant you love that has a policy that whatever it is, that we push them to be better, mm-hmm. that we play a prominent role in that conversation and push them to be better. Some folks are saying, well, apparently Pride tape is flying off the shelves. There was an awesome post yesterday that I was happy to share. I saw that in light of the NHL's decision here, you keep in mind that Pride tape, this was created in Edmonton. This is something that this city can and should be very proud of. But there's an organization called Everactive Schools, and you can find them on Twitter at EveractiveAB. They say in response to the surprising, disappointing, and backward decision of the NHL to ban Pride tape, we've purchased 36 rolls. So what is that? I think it's 5. That's like 150, 160 actual rolls of tape because the big rolls. Anyway, I'm getting in the weeds. Say we'll give them out to schools across Alberta that are running an NHL street program. Diversity, equality, and inclusion matters in schools and arenas, in all schools and arenas. So I thought that was great from Everactive Schools. But yeah, more of the comments here. People were saying Christian says Pride tape was so difficult to deal with. He's being sarcastic. Says it made me think of acceptance and love and inclusion and Skittles. He says, I love Pride tape in all seriousness. Brian says it's the Trump influence on the NHL. A lot of Republican owners are scared they might lose their white fan base, especially in Florida, Tampa, Dallas, Arizona, and Carolina. Richard says that apparently players can use whatever color tape they want. So he's encouraging other players to do that. Canadian Chipper says to me, well, I guess having a different opinion isn't okay unless the differing opinion is one you support. Says everyone has differing opinions.
It's not about that. It's just like, imagine being the Stahl brothers or James Reimer or one of these guys who made a big stink and being them now. Because I don't think they ever thought it would get this far. Like, those guys have kids. Like, are they going to look at their kids in 10 years and be like, yeah, like having beers, like all of them together, be like, yeah, we did something good. Like, do they honestly think this is a good thing?
Yeah, probably.
Taking a step back, putting people into the shadows, into the corners. Like,
because religiously,
I just don't know how someone could feel like this they did a good thing.
But they were citing their religion, like Ivan Provorov, Russian Orthodox, and there are religions that are like straight up, they're not cool. Mm-hmm. With the clues are in the words, right? Like with the lifestyle, with the choice. They don't believe these are people. Mm-hmm. They don't believe that people are born this way. They don't believe that this is who people are. They believe it's a lifestyle choice. They believe that straight people wake up one day and decide to start having gay sex because it's a lifestyle they want to lead. And they believe it's a sinful and wrong lifestyle based on their religion. So they do believe they're taking a stand. They do believe that they're in the right. Right? I mean, I've been around anybody who has friends that are deep into, conservative religion. I'm not talking about the political conservative. I'm talking about people that are, like Orthodox religion. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't have to explain it. Probably every one of us has at least one friend that if all of their views on this were made public, they would be very unpopular, right? And I think that's the case with some of these hockey players.
I just think in the future, and it might be when we're dead and gone, Ryan, but when everyone's just finally like, when we look back in 50 or 100 years and are like, remember when we used to like tell people like who to sleep with and who to marry and who to love and what to wear and what to call themselves, and like years from now we're just gonna be like, how fucking stupid was this that we were arguing over, like just showing some support for people who today we don't even talk about it. It's just whatever. It's just humankind. I don't get it at all. And I don't think those guys as fathers should feel proud that they've pushed the league to do this.
Yeah. Tony says, I don't think boycotting should be the first response. Call or write the organization, express your disappointment. If nothing changes, then make your decision. Tony says dollars always make a difference. And that is true. That is true. Alberta Girl says, I boycotted the NHL in the 1980s after growing up in an Oilers family. I don't believe that hockey players should be millionaires when people live on the streets just a block away from Ice District. Yeah, maybe a different issue. I understand it. That to me is more just a market reality. But man, salaries are on the rise.
They're
You see,
crazy.
Rasmus Dahlin. I mean, he's one of the best young. I know this
And
isn't a hockey show, but he's
Yeah.
one of the best young defensemen in the game in the Buffalo Sabres. He's just signed it. What is he? 22, 23 years old. Just signed an $11 million annual contract. I mean, like unbelievable.
But
the money
compared
they're
to like
making now.
American sports,
It's nothing.
It's still low.
The NBA,
Like,
they're
you
making
should-
like 35,
baseball
40 million.
is crazy. I'm like, these chubby dudes
Oh,
who
jeez.
get up and whack a ball, 5 times a game. I can't believe the amount of money they pay some of these people.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Maddie says hockey is still for everyone. I don't know, Maddie. I don't think that the league is sending that message. Funky Towel says hockey is for fun and not for politics. I don't think that pride is politics.
Yeah, is pride a downer? Like, is pride a party pooper?
Pride can be
like,
political.
It's fun.
But I know gay conservatives. I know gay liberals, so I don't think that it's politics. Mark says, use pride tape if you want. To me, it's no big deal, and it's totally fine. The problem is those that won't participate get crucified for having different views, and that's not right either. Mark says, until one can be corrected, we can't have the other. You can let us know what you think about this. What were you about to say?
I'll put up the talk thing. Talk to us, people. But like, I don't get why we treat, LGBTQ issues like they're separate from if someone came out and didn't represent on Indigenous Night or on Black History Month, a night, in Chicago, celebrating Black History Month. Nobody would say that. They'd be like, why aren't you celebrating Black history? Why aren't you, but every time it has to do with LGBTQ issues, it's like this gray area where we're like, well, you don't have to. You don't. Nobody's forcing anyone. Like, you should be welcoming of everyone.
We talk about false.
We're not asking you to paint your house in rainbow colors. We're asking you to put on a shirt for 15 minutes. Like,
I heard actually if he gets reelected, Justin Trudeau's going to force everybody in Alberta to paint their house in pride colors.
did you like that?
You talk about false equivalencies. I had a guy tweet me yesterday say, so you want everybody wrapping their stick in pride tape, which I didn't say that. He goes, what if a player wanted to wrap their stick with tape of the Confederate flag? And I'm sitting there going, are you comparing pride? Are you comparing
I don't know what people
being gay and slavery? Are you comparing the Civil War to? Yeah, I didn't quite understand that. But
people always like to they like to make it seem like the LGBTQ movement is some sort of with us or against us. We hate you. It's not like that at all. Like, most people just want to feel like they fit in.
Yeah.
It's like when you're a kid and you're awkward and like you want to be hanging with the cool people or what. You just want to feel like you belong. And that's all it's really about. And these people who keep, like you said, force people to take steps back. It just like, there's one more kid who's sitting there watching a hockey game who's like, man, I like dudes, or one girl who's sitting out there and being like, I'm attracted to girls, who's not going to say a thing, who's going to bottle that up, put it down inside them. It's going to turn into some horrible issue in their lives.
Self-loathing.
Yeah, it's
sometimes there's a peace though that comes with stepping away from trying to convince everybody of something as well. Like yesterday with the Confederate flag comment. I just decided to leave it. Because if somebody believes that that is a valid comparison, if somebody thinks that that's a gotcha tweet or that they pin me into a corner with that comparison, we don't have a lot to talk about. And
again,
that's okay
they think
too.
it's an opinion, right?
Yeah.
They think it's a
a
lifestyle.
choice.
It's an opinion. It's a choice. It's not. This is how people are born. Like, nobody, I keep seeing people saying, oh, sometimes they're groomed. Sometimes they hang out with the wrong. Like, that's not what happens. As a straight person, think to yourself right now. Do you think you could wake up one day, go to a couple parties, and then all of a sudden feel gay? Like,
no, but see here, I think that what you're doing is trying to talk common sense to people that don't have common sense. And I'm not going to, like, I don't sit, like, if somebody still in 2023 thinks that it's a choice, if somebody still thinks it's a lifestyle, it's like, and maybe people will disagree with me here. Maybe I'll disagree with myself when I listen to this back. But I'm not going to expend a lot of emotional energy trying to convince people that are intentionally obtuse when it comes to certain subject matter. I'm not going to expend a lot of my emotional energy on that person. I'm not going to fight those battles. I don't have the emotional or intellectual bandwidth. They always say, like, never wrestle with pigs because the pig's going to love it and you're going to end up covered in mud.
And shit.
And so, yeah, I think they say shit. So I'm not going to be the one wrestling with pigs, and someone's going to say now that I'm comparing people to pigs and all this, that, and the other, but I just get to the point where it's to the, I think that, there's a Cactus Sheriff says, by the way, he's voting for Trudeau based on this new mandate that everyone in Alberta's got to paint their house in pride.
Do it.
So,
but you know what? I understand also that people are kind of fluid, and some people are bi. They like girls. They like guys. Some people are non-binary. They like. But for me as a person, I've never been attracted to men. So for me to put myself in a gay person's shoes, and for someone to tell, like, if someone was to tell me that the way I feel is because, you don't have the way I grew up or something, I'd be like, what are you talking about? This is how I've always been. This is how I've always felt.
You don't have to understand as a guy what it's like to be attracted to guys to understand that everybody deserves respect. It has nothing to do with attraction. It has nothing to do with sex. It has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with the fact that we have inherent human value and that everybody deserves to be treated with respect. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what this all comes down to. Hockey is for everyone. Everyone deserves respect. And that's what the campaign's all about. Let us know what you think. Talk at RyanJesperson.com. We'll obviously keep this conversation going. We'll wait to see who the first NHLer is that takes the fine. I mean, I dare the NHL to fine anybody for doing this. But we'll see what happens. I don't expect it to be on a random game night. I don't expect it to be anytime soon. But certainly on Pride Night, I expect to see some Edmonton Oilers in particular rocking pride tape on their sticks. Coming up on Friday's Real Talk, that's tomorrow, we're going to change the pace a little bit. We know that everything's heavy going on right now. Some of you are going, well, why aren't you talking about Israel and Hamas right now? Why aren't you talking about what's going on in the Middle East? Obviously, that's something that's going to be our focus for a while. We understand that there are other issues. Yesterday, talking to Professor Ben Perrin about Canada's broken criminal justice system. We understand the economy is down for a lot of people. We understand there's stress everywhere. So tomorrow, we're going to lighten things up. We're going to have some fun. We're going to take 3 of the biggest movers and shakers in Alberta's craft beer industry, and we're going to welcome them to our Real Talk Roundtable for an in-person hour that you won't want to miss. We'll see you then.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer